Welcome to a very special episode of the Soul Talk podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be diving into all things healing, healing yourself, healing your relationships, healing and exploring the healing of intergenerational traumas, also how to overcome stress and oppression, and what is it to live fully aligned, authentic, and sharing your gifts with the world. I'm really excited about my guest today. She is a psychologist, professor, sacred artist, and minister. She just released a relatively new book, Matters of the Heart, and another bestseller previously, Homecoming. Welcome, Dr. Thema Bryant.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you and your community.
It's such a joy. I've been looking forward to it very much. I've seen you around. I've seen some of your interviews, and I have the homecoming. And I'm just really looking forward to diving in and learning and sharing you with everyone. One thing there's so many things I want to ask you, but one thing I want to just dive into. I'm always curious as to what was the sort of, was there an impetus? Was there a moment? Was there something that inspired you to do the work that you're doing? I know you've had quite a journey,
Yes.
quite a story, but
Yeah.
I don't know, was there a moment, was there some specific thing where it just pushed you on the path that kind of led to you doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So I am the daughter of two ministers. And so growing up, I saw my parents providing what they would call pastoral counseling. That a lot of times within our community, the African American community, as opposed to reaching out to a mental health professional, many people would reach out to their pastor or other faith or spiritual leaders. So I was keenly aware early on of the sacred work of bearing witness and walking alongside people as they're doing their healing journey. And then when I got a little older, I learned about psychology as a field and knew that that really was the work I felt led and called to do. Growing up, I would have been what was called a sensitive child. And at the time, it wasn't something you want to be. Usually, if people said, "Oh, you're very sensitive," it was the idea of being like very emotion filled and,
Mm,
maybe you needed to toughen up. But as it works out, to do the healing work, the sensitivity is really a gift
mm,
of feeling people very deeply, being tuned in to show up with compassion and with care. And so that is really what I've spent my life doing. The healing work takes different forms. So healing through art, poetry and dance, healing as a therapist, and then healing in those sacred spaces as well.
mm. You talked about emotional sensitivity. Um, I'm curious in terms of how you learn to navigate that. I think there's going to be folks listening that might be deeply sensitive. And based on when we look at a lot of the things that are happening in our world today that are very intense and chaotic and stressful, for those that have deep sensitivity, how can they what can you share in terms of how they can learn to navigate that within themselves, where they can learn to manage themselves and regulate themselves, and yet still be open and compassionate? Yet many times when we end up taking on and absorbing everyone's stuff. And so,
Yeah.
what's the balance? What's the way we can deal with that?
Certainly. So, one, I would say, in terms of how we frame it, to see it as a gift and a blessing that you have not yet become hardened,
Mm,
that there is a lot happening in the world, and some people have totally checked out and really have gotten in that place of like not caring. Um, and so the fact that with everything you have been through, that you still care, it's a
mm,
beautiful reality that you're still uh, showing up as human, right? That we are not
Mhm.
machines, we are not
Mhm.
rocks. And so, one, I would say to appreciate that about yourself, that you still show up with care and compassion. And
Mm.
then in terms of uh, those who feel overwhelmed by
Yeah.
it, where it feels like, you're drowning in it, I would say to not neglect ourselves. That
Mm.
sometimes when you're a caring person, you might care for everybody else, but
Mhm.
not care or steward your own soul.
Mm.
So then can I have compassion for myself? Can I be intentional about not neglecting myself or abandoning myself? And
Mhm.
so, I want to have a sustainable life. So then kind of creating these rituals of care that I do not just when I'm burned out, but like my daily practice. So I
Mhm. Mhm.
encourage people to create like morning rituals. For each
Mhm.
person, it will look different, and over the course of your life, it'll change. Um, but starting your day not like off and running and racing,
Mhm.
but what are the ways I can nourish myself so that I actually show up for life or work or family or friends, not on empty. And so that takes an intentional practice. It may
Mm.
mean I start the day in meditation or prayer. Some people want to start with journaling. Some people
Mhm.
will start by listening to music. That music is medicine. Some people say I want to wake up early enough where I can have my tea or go for a walk.
Mhm.
So that's the way, we
Mhm.
caretake ourselves so we're not overrun by the worries of the world.
Mm. What if someone's like, but I just I feel people so deeply. I get triggered, or I see someone and I just start crying, and I have a hard time being with their pain. And for that person who it's hard, like I don't want to get hardened and just disconnect. But when I keep my heart open,
Mhm.
it's too painful.
Mhm.
Is there something that they like how do they manage that in the world? How do they manage that? Like even you as a therapist, I'm sure
Mhm.
you've heard some stories. Like
Yeah.
in the moment,
Mhm.
wh- what do you do? How do you
Yeah.
maintain a certain compassion, but also
Yeah.
presence and neutrality? Is there some art form to that, or?
Mhm. Yeah. So a part of it is we can talk about like compassion holds or embodiment.
Hmm.
So ways that I can regulate, if we want to call it regulation of
Hmm.
myself. One is through breath. So when I'm stressed and panicked, I hold my breath and I breathe in a very shallow way, which tells my nervous system I'm not safe.
Hmm.
And so your respiratory system is the only system in the body that you can more directly control. And
Hmm.
so when you're seeing or hearing about a distressing story, starting to engage in slow, purposeful breathing. So I will inhale, you can say a box breath. You inhale for the count of 4 or 6, and then you hold that, and then you exhale slowly through the mouth, and then you pause and hold that. So as I am regulating and being intentional with my breath,
Hmm.
I'm sending a message to my nervous system. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we have compassion holds, and your listeners may want to try. You put a hand on your heart, a hand on your belly, and take breath. Or you can put a hand on your heart and one hand on your forehead and take your
Hmm.
breath.
Hmm.
Or you can embrace yourself. Many of us are touch deprived.
Yes.
So, right, just to
Uh,
be able to hug myself and hold
uh-huh.
myself, I'm sending myself a message. I'm okay. And
Mm.
so, our breath and then our compassion holds, and then also thinking about doing what I can. So, in
Mm.
our current world, there's disruption happening in a lot of different fields. And
Hmm.
so then you start to think like, what's my lane? Right?
Right.
So, for example, my lane is mental health. And so, and there are particular people that I journey with around their mental health, but there's disruption happening in the education system and,
Mm,
this system and that system. So, if I try to think about how will I solve all of these, it would be overwhelming. So, I
hmm.
have to trust that there are people working in different lanes and I'm going to catch my baton, right? I'm going to do
Hmm.
my lane and be hopeful and prayerful that there are other people doing the other lanes that, I don't know as much about or I don't have
Hmm.
access to.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Compassion, you mentioned that word.
Hmm.
For someone that is maybe dealing with, if they're like, I want to be compassionate with myself. I know I should,
Hmm.
but Dr. Tema, I've done some things
Yeah.
that I'm not proud of.
Hmm.
I've cheated, I've
Hmm.
betrayed, I've been a bad person.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I want to be compassionate with myself, but I just don't feel that I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that, where do they start?
Hmm. So glad you raised that. That is a part of our work in the Matters of the Heart book
Uh-huh.
is building self-compassion. And a part of self-compassion is self-forgiveness. And so, what helps me to give myself grace or what helps me to
Mhm.
give myself forgiveness? I'd like to say if we look far enough back in our story, our present moment will make sense, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm ridiculous, or I don't
Yeah.
know like why I did these things. So you start to like connect the dots, not as an excuse, but as a way of understanding myself, right?
Mhm.
So if I had to do it again, I would want to make a different choice, but I also want to understand like what was I thinking, or why did that
Mhm.
seem like a good idea at the time? And so as I start to kind of trace back my story, because many of us are not reflecting, we're just kind of living moment to moment. But as we really start to reflect, then like, oh, I can see why I did the things I did. And so that insight can help me to make another choice, to make a better
Mhm.
choice. And then we can also consider, accountability is not just about punishment. And some of us are just punishing ourselves, but
Yes.
accountability is how do I show up differently, whether that is to rectify some of the harms I have done with people directly.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's years later and people will finally apologize, like sincerely. Now, the person may or may not take your apology, but you
Mhm.
owning your part. And some people have talked about it actually being freeing. There are some
Mhm.
adults who, finally got the apology from the parent
Yes.
who, didn't show up for them in the way they should have. And
Mhm.
that can be healing.
Mhm. Mhm. I want you to talk a bit about, I've heard you mention this term intergenerational trauma.
Mhm.
Um, what is it, and how do we start healing the
Yeah.
intergenerational? How do we even recognize it?
Yeah. So with intergenerational trauma, it is the passing down of psychological wounds. And
Mm.
when we have not healed, we pass those wounds down. And the wounds can be passed down in a number of ways, uh, primarily three. One of the ways we pass down our wounds is physically, like in our bodies.
Mm.
So, our neural system, our brain responds to trauma, and then some of those effects we can see in the brain, in the nervous system of our children. The
Mm,
gift is not only do we pass down trauma, but we can also pass down healing. So
hmm
healing,
hmm
there is neuroplasticity, which means the brain can change.
Yes.
And so as we heal, we can also pass that down. Uh, we also pass down trauma as a result of the ways in which we teach our children. So, things like don't trust anybody,
Right, right.
right?
The belief systems and
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So
Mm,
we tell children, it's like if you are a survivor of domestic violence, then some of
mhm,
the things you teach your children about relationships are based in your wound. It's
mm,
actually it's not a lesson on healthiness. Sometimes it's like a survival strategy, or teaching people to test people, or to not trust people, or to think in a transactional way that,
mm,
if you are with someone intimately, then they need to pay your rent or they need to buy you shoes. So
mm,
then we are teaching a way of being that is out
mm,
of our survivorship and out of our woundedness. So you can start to reflect on, like, what were the life lessons I was taught, and which of those are actually edifying, and which of those can create dysfunction.
mm,
And then, the third way is through observation that these wounds get passed down. So one is
mm,
in the body, two is what they told you, and three is even if they didn't tell it to you, what you observed.
mm,
So,
mhm.
we learn by watching how did they do life.
Right.
So, right, then we can just
Hmm
start imitating that without even an awareness. We just think that that's the way it's supposed to be.
hmm So we're
And
not
so,
even conscious necessarily. We're just
right.
sort of absorbing it and taking it on, and
Yes.
then we end up
Yeah.
living life and we don't even know why we are the way we are or why we're
Right.
creating some of those experiences.
Yeah.
Hmm
Yeah. So that's one of when you said, how do we even know it? That is one of the gifts of exposure when you see people who are living a different way, right? Who are doing it differently. That's the first time it'll register to you that there are options, that there are choices, that like
hmm
what I saw is not the only way to do it.
hmm Right. Can you share a bit more about the physical piece in terms of
Yes.
how it's passed down? Like could you explain like how is it passed down through the physical?
Yeah.
Like the
So,
teaching part is clear, the
um,
observation, but the
right.
physical, like how does that get passed down?
Yeah. So, some of the research that's been done on it is, for example, with survivors of the Holocaust. When they study the brains, they'll do a brain scan and look at survivors of the Holocaust and then see, the same fluctuations
Mm,
in like second and third generation members of their families. So, then their children weren't in the Holocaust, but we're seeing those same shifts or changes, in the brain. So we
when they
can,
when they measured the brain.
when they do the
Oh
brain
wow.
scan and they compare
Wow.
it, they'll compare it to people who are not survivors and they don't have those same alterations. Yeah,
Wow.
so it's
Wow.
amazing the ways in which that's documented. Um, so we can also, see, let's say, in trauma survivors, some alteration in what's called the Broca's area of the brain. And that
Mhm.
area of the brain, we think about the impact both in being able to retrieve or pull out traumatic memories and then to be able to speak about them. So when it
Mhm.
is hard for people to talk about traumatic memories, it is not just, people being avoidant, but that it can be neurologically difficult.
Mhm.
And we can consider in an evolutionary way, like, why we, may avoid.
He
those,
does.
right, those difficult memories. Um, and so, the gift of, that neuroplasticity is, that the brain, can also be altered, with our healing. So it's again,
Mm,
which is why I'm glad there's more work being done around the vagus nerve and how we can heal our nervous system.
mm.
And whether we talk about with the breath, interestingly, also like calming the nervous system with humming and with
Yeah.
rocking, right? So we
Mm,
think
mm.
culturally of people who are like swaying, think about like a picture
Yeah.
of grandmother who's swaying
Yeah.
and rocking, and you would just
Wow.
kind of see them humming and rocking, but
Hmm.
they're, soothing their nervous system.
Wow. There's a sort of intelligence inside.
Yes, yes.
What about if someone says, but I don't remember anything from my childhood. Like there's
Hmm.
a few people I've heard that are just it's a
Yeah,
blank. It's nothing. I don't
yeah,
remember anything. Like
right.
he- how did they heal if they don't
Yeah.
remember barely a thing?
Right. And, I want to say one that is like a symptom and sign when there are whole like stages of your childhood that are a blank, right?
Hmm.
That can be the mind's way, of protecting you, right? So we dissociate it because the memories are so painful. The good thing is we have found that people can heal even when they don't remember the specifics.
Mm,
And so we'll see that not only when people, are kind of dissociated, but you also have trauma survivors who, let's say the trauma was so early that like no one would remember those stages, like, abused,
yeah.
as babies or toddlers. We also think about prenatal trauma. So if the
Mm,
mother was under a lot of stress, experienced domestic violence while pregnant, or
hmm.
is a refugee while pregnant, so you're not going to have like explicit memories. And then, of course, you have, for example, people who experienced drug facilitated rapes.
Mm,
So they're not going to retrieve like those memories, but they
hmm.
woke up and the physical evidence is there that someone assaulted them. So we still have therapeutic processes
Mm,
that we can do that aren't like narrative specific. Then we're more so addressing both the symptoms and the meaning making. So it's,
hmm.
what is the story I have told myself or other people have told me about myself based on those experiences? So, let's say I was abused and abandoned. I was so young, I don't remember it, but now I'm walking around with this story that says I'm not worthy of love, right? Or
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
is wrong with me, or that no one will ever stay, right? So
Hmm.
then we're addressing the story or the narrative or the meaning I have given it, even though
Yes,
I don't have the details.
got it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the intergenerational trauma, because I think this is something so deep, because I think as I'm listening to you and reflecting on my own life,
Mhm.
I think in so many ways we think we're free, but we are often, until we become conscious and heal, we are playing out the sort of unresolved patterns that have been passed down from generations. And
Mhm.
many times, like, oh, why do I feel this way? I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why I'm creating this. And some of it's not even ours that
Right.
perhaps we're
That is,
carrying,
yes,
right? It's
yeah.
just the anger of
Mhm.
grandmother or
Mhm.
grandfather, or
Right.
the
Right.
addiction of
Yes.
great grandfather.
That's
and,
right.
and and so let's say I become somewhat aware of, okay,
Mhm.
I'm carrying this pattern, this
Mhm.
feeling, this belief. Maybe it's not mine. Maybe there's some connection to my dad and my grandfather. How, I guess, how do we start shifting this?
Yeah.
Especially if we're aware, like, I don't know if this, yes, I'm playing it out,
Hmm.
but I don't like this doesn't even feel like some of my stuff.
Right. Yeah, yes. So, there are a couple different pathways. One is behaviorally. So, with a behavior intervention, I, instead of waiting until I feel totally healed or waiting until I
Uh-huh.
really love myself, it's almost
Right.
like act as if. So,
Uh-huh.
I say to people, like, what would a healed person do in this moment? So let's say someone's disrespecting me, right?
Mm.
And my tendency is kind of doormat or silence or shame or blame or silence myself. And even though I don't totally feel confident, I am going to speak up in this moment because I believe a healed person wouldn't just let this happen,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Or let's say the other extreme, when instead of being passive, let's say someone's used to being very aggressive, that, if someone just rolls their eyes at them or
Uh.
slights them in some way, they explode, right? So I feel like the healed person wouldn't explode over minor things. So
Mm.
even though I don't yet really feel it at my core, I'm
Mhm.
just going to like practice doing it differently, which is why, again, it's nice to have exposure to see some other
Mm.
examples of like,
Mm.
is there anyone I respect that I've seen how they handled a difficult moment,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
And, I'm still working on my self-esteem, but in the meantime, I'm going to try this other way, right? So
Mm.
I try to
Mm.
shift it around behavior. We can also think about, with our spiritual practices, if people engage in meditation or prayer, or both, those things can help us to shift, right? To shift our awareness because here's the thing, many of us were raised by people who were rest deprived. And
Mm.
when they are not only sleep, I mean, they're sleep deprived, but also just being in a restful place. So, when you're rest deprived, you operate in panic, you operate in
Mhm.
anxiety, you operate out of scarcity and survival. And we don't always make the best choices when we're in that mode.
Mm.
And so, uh, then by, in my being an contemplative, right? Then I can show up with more groundedness. And then that's going to change how I parent. It's going to
Mm.
change how I am in love relationships,
Mhm.
because I'm in a more grounded place.
Can anyone heal?
Yes, for some, it remains more of a struggle than others.
And I think the reason I asked that before
Yeah.
you go on
Yeah.
is it, I guess, yeah, let's go into this question as well. H- How much of it is there such a thing as destiny? I'm curious what you feel. It's just, this is their destiny. This is just
Mhm.
God's will for this person in their lifetime. And this is just part of the journey they're meant to walk. And this is it? Or can anyone heal? Like no matter, or is someone just, it's just their path to go through this relationship dynamic, or it's just their path to go through this financial scarcity in life. Can anyone heal or not?
Right.
And destiny. I'm just kind of
Right.
throwing a few things at you.
Sure, sure. So I believe we can all make a new choice.
Mm.
And that if people believe in God, if we say
Hmm.
like, what is the nature of God? The nature of
Hmm.
God is loving. So it doesn't match to say I was destined to hurt people. No, you're right, like that I'm stuck. I'm like, I was created to be hurtful, or I was created to be destructive. Like that doesn't match if
Yes.
believe in whatever
Yes.
that higher source is. If that
Mm.
is coming from a place of love, then it means I'm in process and I have experienced some things that disconnected me from myself. that
Mhm.
disconnected me from the truth of me, that disconnected me from love. And so, and some people have had a lot of experiences, but what is also remarkable is you'll encounter some people who have had very hard experiences
Mhm.
and are very kind people,
For sure.
right? So, it can be harder to let down the armor. It's not like an instant thing, um, but we can make a different choice versus like if I say, well, because my parents were addicts, am I doomed? No. And it also may mean I have to be more mindful because I may be
Yeah.
predisposed to it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. So
know?
there is maybe a predisposition. We have to
Yeah.
be a bit more
Right.
intentional.
Right. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So it will come, easier for some people versus others. The same thing like we can see around our eating, right? Some people can eat the exact same diet, right?
You're
And
gonna get me
it,
mad now.
right? And it show up differently, those the numbers look
And they
different,
don't go to the gym and they
right?
don't exercise. And I'm like, here I am doing my 1 hour a day.
Right. It's true. It's true. So they were like, it's not fair, but I can still try to do some things to,
Well,
enhance my
yeah,
health.
like I'm curious, even from a sort of you're a minister, also from that perspective, I want to look at things. It's like, why is that? Like, why does it seem like things are not fair sometimes? Like, why is it that someone works so hard, they're so sincere, they do it the right way, and things don't happen. And the other person, they take the shortcuts, they cheat, they, do their thing, and somehow they get away with it. Like,
Yeah.
what,
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
explain that?
Right. The way I look at it is, and this is, from a faith
Yes.
perspective, the way I think of it is God gave us free will. And
Hmm.
so people get to choose, and some people choose to do the wrong thing, and that hurts people and it hurts systems. So, like, God could have created a world where we were all robots, and
Yes.
like, we just did the right thing and we said the right thing. That wouldn't be a human, but we would be programmed for
Hmm.
perfection. And we were programmed with choices. So that means some people go out in the world and choose to steal, choose
Hmm.
greed, choose colonialism, choose all,
Hmm.
manner of things. And so our world, even with, climate change, right? Uh, a world could have been created where we just uh, took better care of the resources. But we
Hmm.
get to choose, and we see even now people making choices that are hurting the air and hurting the water. So it's a gift and a challenge. I think when we've been hurt, we wish we were created another way, but there is also a gift in not being robots, I feel, of getting
Hmm.
to make a choice.
Hmm. Yeah. In terms of forgiveness, I want to explore that a bit. Um, in your work, why do people stay stuck? Are there things you see, like, why does someone not make the shift?
Hmm. Yeah. I want to say one of the things that keeps us stuck that people don't often talk about is healing is uncomfortable,
Mm.
right? Healing can be messy. Healing can be
Mhm.
awkward because the dysfunction, as dysfunctional as it is familiar, right? I don't have
Mhm.
to think
Mhm.
about it. I just do it. It's
It's
like
the known.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know how to do it, right?
Mhm.
People who like just cuss people out. It's not hard for them. So then if
Yeah.
you say like, oh, the healthy thing is to like instead of like cursing at or beating your kids is to talk
Mhm.
to them or give them a consequence. Like that feels awkward to people or people who didn't grow up with like verbal affirmation and the child really wants to hear them say I love you they're like, that feels fake or that feels
Mm,
awkward. So change and growth and healing is hard. It's easier to maintain what you know, to do what you
mhm,
know. So
mhm,
people get discouraged. You can think about it like New Year's resolutions, right? We're all like, I'm going to the gym or I'm gonna do this, and then like by March, we go
mhm. By
back.
February.
Right, right. You go
Uh-huh.
back to your old ways. So
Mhm,
maintaining change is difficult. It's like when people do like the crash diet, being quote unquote good for a day but when we say like a lifestyle, so it's even hard for some people to fathom like for the rest of my life,
mm,
but I think it takes a shift for us to see both the benefits of the change and the cost of if I can keep doing it this way, but it's been costing me.
mhm, mhm. Do we need to forgive everything?
I think we have to,
Or are some things just like unforgivable?
right? I think we have to unpack what people mean when they say forgive,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Because one of the big distinctions that I make is forgiveness doesn't equal reconciliation.
Tell me more about that.
Right? So I can choose to forgive someone who's not sorry, right? Just because I'm like, I'm not gonna carry the weight of it that every time I see you, I have to get worked up. Every time I hear your name, I have to get worked up. And
Mm,
so, for my own peace, I have decided to release it. But when a person is not really changed, it's not healthy for me to be in relationship with them. So I may say they're forgiven, but they're not allowed in my house, right? Because they're
mm.
going to keep doing what it is they did. But I really am not holding a grudge. I'm operating in wisdom and discernment. But
Discernment, right.
yeah, yeah. So you can say,
So,
um,
so how do you know? How does someone know they've forgiven them? Like, is it a feeling? Is it a,
right,
uh,
it is. Um, uh, I would say when I have forgiven, there is a freedom that I feel that's not about like inviting necessarily this person in,
mhm,
um, but like a lightening of my own heart
mm,
because
mm,
to be consumed by the outrage it's just a heavy way of going through
mhm.
life. And I do want to say it is healthy to be outraged about outrageous things because some people think
Yes.
like you should never be upset. Well, some people have done some terrible
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and then Judith Herman has done this work about constructive anger versus destructive anger. So, constructive anger, we think about like any major change that happened in society, it was as a result of constructive anger, where people said, it's not right how people treat this group of people, and we're going to make a change. And they were outraged about it, and they fought for civil rights or human rights or children's rights or animal rights or whatever. It was like an outrage at the way things are and working to make things different versus, that destructive anger where I'm just going to burn things down. I'm going to destroy
Mm,
myself
mm,
or I'm going to destroy other people. One is very much bent on revenge and punitive, but then in some ways, can never be satisfied,
mm,
right?
mm,
It's like, I'm going to take this from them, this from them, this from them, but then they don't feel any relief.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so then it's like, uh, it's healthy for me to have outrage about outrageous things, but then what do I want to do with my outrage?
Mm, mm. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's listening
Mhm.
and they're like, okay, Dr. Tam, everything you're saying makes sense. But my mom or my dad, they did something. It's just crazy.
Mhm.
And how do I even forgive what my mom did? I just it's just, they chopped me up, they sliced me up, they did like I just cannot forgive that.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah. I would say, yeah.
how does someone, because that resentment and that pain, it
Hmm.
eats us up, and
Yeah.
it kills us from the inside.
Mhm.
And so for someone who might be listening and they're holding on to that and it's eating them from the inside, how do they forgive what seems justifiable, to be honest?
Mhm.
It's like that they were raped, they were abused, they were,
Yes.
it's like how do they move to the point of
Right.
forgiveness?
Yeah. I would say to shift the focus from forgiving them to healing you.
Mm,
Right. When I'm so focused on like that, my priority is I need to forgive them, then they're still the center of your story. And what we're wanting to do is to make you the center of your own healing story.
mm,
And also to release, because again, it's how we define it. Some people, when they hear forgiveness, they think that I'm supposed to act like it didn't happen, or
mm,
they think that means that it's okay that it happened. No, it's not okay. The way your parent or whoever harmed you or violated you is unacceptable. It's inexcusable. You deserved better. That we are each worthy of love, of care, of safety, of respect. And
mm,
you should have been given those things, and you were not. So
mm,
now we look at how will you heal? And I don't operate from the framework that some religious people do that would say the only step to healing is forgiveness. I don't
mm,
believe that, because when you frame it that way, you're still making the offender the center.
mm,
So let's not center them. What they did was terrible, but now let's look at how it has affected you, the fact that you feel consumed by this rage and resentment. So what has happened in the long run is you have uh, remained punished. They've gone on with their lives. They may
yes,
not
yeah.
even be thinking about it.
Mm,
And so now is healing your sense of yourself
mm,
so that you can live a full life.
mm, 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 mm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think healing and the work you're doing and true healing is so powerful. I look at the many years of inner work I've had to do in my own self, in my own life, and then the real, like, I felt the impact in my own, just in a sense of freedom. But when I had a son,
Mm,
and I looked at him and I felt his energy, his frequency, his vibration. It was as though, Dr. Thema, there was a brightness and a lightness to his being.
uh,
And in that moment, I
yeah.
saw the fulfillment of all the work I had done. Like,
Wow.
like I saw,
Yeah.
like, wow, like my work had spiritually set him free. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like a whole new lineage was now being carved, where
Yes.
he wouldn't have to
Right.
play out the
Uh-huh.
intergenerational traumas of my
Right.
ancestors. And
Yes.
like, it's
Uh,
worth it. It's not
yes, it's
easy,
worth it. Yeah.
but wow, it's worth it.
Ah, that
Yeah,
is so beautiful.
yeah,
And I love that. It's the evidence. You see it not only in your life, but seeing it in the life of your children.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is worth it.
yeah. Um, what are three things that you wish you knew when you started your journey?
Ah,
It's like, wow, I wish I knew this,
right,
that maybe you could share with
right,
us.
right. I wish I knew that it was going to get better.
Mm,
You see, when you're in a despairing place or a depressed place, you think what you have experienced is what the rest of your life is going to look like,
Right.
right? So that's a part of what keeps people stuck is
Mm-hmm.
that loss of hope,
Mm,
right? But to know, oh, it's going to be beautifully better, right? That
mm-hmm.
allows us to, go forward and also allows us to make different decisions when
Mm,
we like can believe that. So that hope or faith, and not just, I'll say a knowing, right? Because you could hope and then be like, I don't know. But to know for sure it gets better.
mm,
There's life after the midnight experiences uh, that would help me to show
mm,
up differently. Um, the importance of mutuality and reciprocity in friendship.
mm.
Because, as a therapist and a minister, when you're doing your work, my battery. There we go. Okay. Uh, as a therapist or minister, you're often pouring out. And if you're not careful, you can create that same dynamic in your friendship circle of being
Mm.
the strong one.
Yeah, yeah.
And it has been such a gift to my life to have. I have a sisterhood circle I call the Gathering.
Mm,
And, it's just mutual, reciprocal. I give and receive. So the
mm,
importance
mm,
of that is, life changing.
mhm.
And let's see, I wish I knew. Uh, I kind of knew it. I would say I continued to learn it,
Yes.
but the strength of sharing my story
Hmm.
to not be stuck in shame, but to know like how empowering it is to share your story.
Mm, mm. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Wow. Could you assign some homework to people if there's like something practical that everyone listening could go and do
Yeah,
and from this conversation, like literally immediately, so it becomes a lived, this conversation becomes a lived experience that they
yeah.
can immediately apply. What can they do right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, I will ask everyone to write vows to themselves.
Uh-huh.
So, we often hear about marriage vows where we make all these promises to someone else, and we promise in sickness and in health, and richer or poorer, all the things. And so, to say, what do you promise yourself? That I'm going to show up for me, in all these different seasons when I get it right and when I mess up, right? That I'm going to take care of me, that I'm going to love myself. So write some sacred vows to yourself. And then I invite everyone to starting tomorrow morning, uh, have a morning ritual. So wake up before you have to get
Mm,
going. And figure out a way or experiment to find a way to nourish your soul before you get out in the world.
mm. Beautiful. Folks, you heard it. Little homework assignment to practicalize, so to speak, and really embody this conversation. I want you all to put what she's saying into action. It's been a really powerful conversation. Where can people find you? Where can people can connect with
Yes.
you? And I know the book is out. I know obviously I'm have the homecoming on my shelf, but the
Yay,
heart of the
thank you.
matter as well as the new book. But
Yes.
where can people connect with you, find your work?
Yes. So my website is drthema.com, and that's DRTHEMA. And I'm on social media as Dr. Thema. And the books are everywhere that books are sold. And I do want to say, in addition to the hardback and digital, there are also audio books for people who prefer to listen as you're driving or just sitting. So both Homecoming and Matters of the Heart. And then there is one workbook called Reclaim Yourself, and that gives
Mm.
you practical steps for your healing.
Beautiful. Folks, we're going to put all of Dr. Tamer's links in the show notes. I want to encourage that you definitely get her new book and also Homecoming and connect with her and her work. She's definitely a fountain of wisdom. It's been such a joy to connect with
Oh,
you.
thank
You know
you.
that there's some people that, you know, the words they say is powerful, and there's so much that you said that is powerful. But then there's also folks such as yourself where I feel like it's not just what you say, but there's the silence also speaks a lot. And so what you say says a lot, but the silence of your being
uh,
that I
mm,
feel is rich with spirit says so much. So
uh,
thank you for blessing us, blessing the
thank you.
community.
Mm.
Folks, send me an email, coopblackson@coopblackson.com. I'd love to hear your key takeaways from today's episode. Share this episode with everyone in your life that you love, and I'll catch you next week.